It's 2023 and it's time for a brand new Google Ads strategy for testing your products. Now, realistically speaking, I spent a large portion of 2023 just figuring out what strategy works best and for what type of ad account. And after spending close to 6 figures just on the testing part, I'm glad to say I figured out sort of a perfect strategy when it comes to the products. Now, the reason why I say sort of is because this product testing strategy that I'll be going over in this video really depends on where you are in the current situation with your e-commerce brand. Are you more on the just started with Google Ads side of the spectrum, or are you more on the already established side of the spectrum when it comes to Google Ads? But regardless of which side you're on, by the end of this video, you're gonna know exactly which way to go. Now, let's start off with the first side of the spectrum, which I mentioned earlier, which was the just started with Google Ads side of the spectrum. In essence, what this means is your Google Ads account is probably new. You have not spent more than $1,000 to $5,000 in ad spend within the account itself. Now, if you have been an OG follower of me for a while, you know that back in the day, I used to recommend something called the 2-1 launch strategy. And the way that it worked is you would have 2 general standard shopping campaigns running and then 1 branded search campaign running. It was a pretty straightforward and simple approach. Now, in 2023, we're still using that to an extent, but we are now changing it from a 2-1 launch strategy to a 3-1 launch strategy. And the only difference is you will still be running 2 different standard shopping campaigns. However, the only difference now is one standard shopping campaign will be for all of the products within your store. The other shopping campaign will be just for the losing products. The only difference between these 2 strategies is now there will be 3 different standard shopping campaigns running instead of the original 2. One standard shopping campaign will be just for all of the products within your e-commerce brand. The standard shopping campaign number 2 will be for all of the products as well within their e-commerce brand, but just with a very, very low bid of around 10 cents or so. Standard shopping campaign number 3 in this case will be for all losing products. So whatever product fails within either of these 2 individual campaigns will then be placed into this third losers campaign, as I like to call it. Now, the way that you determine whether a product is a losing product or not really depends on your e-commerce brand, the KPIs you need to meet, so on and so forth. So be sure to customize this strategy according to your own e-commerce brand. However, the one portion of this 3-1 launch strategy is for that one branded search campaign. You still want to have that branded search campaign running. Now, the closest resemblance to this launch strategy is within this e-commerce brand right here on my screen. We currently have only 1 standard shopping campaign running and 1 branded search campaign running at the moment, simply because the other 2 shopping campaigns we will be launching very shortly. The only reason why they have not been launched yet is because we just recently got the product feed approved for this e-commerce brand. Hence why these other 2 campaigns at the top are actually search campaigns. This brand was fully relying on just search. But now the strategy will be to launch 2 more of these standard shopping campaigns, because this shopping campaign which we just launched, it's the high bid campaign with all of the products. So essentially, this will be our main product testing campaign. As you can see, it has already started to get data and it has an average CPC of around $1, which is going to come down over time. The other 2 campaigns which we will be launching include a low bid campaign with just the lowest bids, and then a losers campaign which will follow this 3-1 launch strategy. We already have that branded search campaign going here, getting us results, so that's already taken care of. But this is essentially how you want to be kind of making your way into product testing, get the best possible results while testing your products accurately. It's the 3-1 launch strategy for the newer ad accounts. Now, what do you do when you kind of are past this newer ad account level? You're already up to $5,000 or more in ad spend within your ad account. This brings us to the next established ad account strategy, which is more about performance max campaigns. Now, with this campaign strategy, I like to go several different ways, and these different ways depend entirely on the budget. So let's start off with what strategy you should go with if you have less than $100 to spend every single day on ads with Google. For this strategy, I like to go with the collection-based strategy or the KPI-based strategy. Now, the way that this strategy works is very self-explanatory. We launch either one different Performance Max campaign for the best-selling collection within our e-commerce brand, or you can launch 1, 2, 3, maximum of 4 different Performance Max campaigns based on each individual collection and just distribute that $100 a day budget into 4 different ways. So it could be $25 a day each, or however else you want to kind of distribute it. However, I personally believe equally distributing the budget is the best way to go if you decide to launch multiple different collection-based shopping Performance Max campaigns. The other strategy that you can go with this if you have a budget of less than $100 a day is the KPI based strategy. This is very self-explanatory. You just pretty much put all of the products with a certain KPI limit inside of one campaign and then the rest of the products inside another campaign. So for example, let's say that you have a bunch of products where you get a profit of $30 per product or around there. You would put all of these products within the Performance Max campaign, just one PMax campaign, and let them run separately. And then any product which has less than $30 profit margins or more than that, you put inside its own PMax campaign and just run all of those separate products within its individual campaign. But one key thing to keep in mind, only do either of these, so collection-based or KPI-based strategy approaches, if you have less than 200 SKUs on your account. So what I mean by this exactly is if we go inside this PMax right here, go over to products. But the thing about the collection-based or KPI-based approach when it comes to Google Ads is only go with either of these approaches if you have more than 200 SKUs on your account. So what I mean by this exactly is I'm inside this PMax campaign right here, and currently for this e-commerce brand, we only have 149 SKUs, so less than 200 SKUs. This means the collection-based approach or the KPI-based approach is not ideal for an e-commerce brand like this, because if you have less than 200 SKUs, instead you should be going with the OneOne strategy, which is one Performance Max campaign and one branded search campaign. This is very self-explanatory. I mean, this ad account is currently running on the OneOne launch strategy, where we essentially only have one PMax campaign with all of the products and then one branded search campaign, which essentially this branded search campaign, which also is targeting cold traffic. The reason why we do this is because the budget is already pretty limited at $100 a day. We don't want to distribute the budget even further and have multiple different search campaigns and then a PMax and then branded search. It's just going to cause too much distribution and the campaigns are not going to be able to get the proper results. So that's essentially how we started scaling this e-commerce brand. And as you can see, after it had already started to get decent results, we decided to launch a few more campaigns. So we launched a search campaign, which is a dynamic search campaign, a standard shopping campaign, and then another search campaign, which is for a winning product within this e-commerce brand. But that's essentially what we're doing for all the e-commerce brands with less than $100 a day budget. Now let's move on to the next kind of category, which is $100 a day spend to $500 a day spend. What do you do in this case? How do you test your products properly? In this case, it's all about just launching either a collection-based approach or a KPI-based approach. So launching multiple different PMax campaigns and distributing the budget evenly, but then having each PMax just be according to the collection. And then the other way to go about this is to just launch different PMax campaigns based on certain KPIs for your products. And I do recommend you test both so you really can get a good idea of what your e-commerce brand is reacting to the best, because every e-commerce brand is different. There are some strategies which might work for my brand, which will definitely fail for your brand. So it's worth a try to just test both and go along based on the results. But this brings us to the final kind of category, which is $500 a day or more budget that's available to spend on Google Ads. In this case, I do recommend you go with the 3-1 launch strategy, but instead of standard shopping campaigns here, we are replacing everything with Google's algorithm-based campaigns. So Performance Max campaigns. For the 3-1 launch strategy, it's best if you launch one Performance Max campaign for all of your products, one Performance Max campaign for just those losing products, and then one branded search campaign. And of course, you can add more cold traffic campaigns in as you start to get results, so on and so forth. But that's essentially what we have done right here. As you can see, this top one was for one of the major collections right here. And this e-commerce brand right here is the perfect example of this strategy in place. So we had this PMAX campaign right here just for testing different products. So essentially, all of the products were within this PMAX campaign. As you can see, it was not getting too good of a ROAS. But what we did is we decided to distribute the products which were losing products into this campaign and just let them stay there, and then redistribute the winning products based on the results into these two PMAX campaigns right here. So we went from the 3-1 launch strategy into launching it based on collections and then having one PMAX campaign just for testing purposes only. So in this case, essentially, we kind of diverted from the 3-1 launch strategy into the collection-based strategy because that was what worked with this ad account. However, we still continued this PMAX campaign despite the low results, simply because now this has become the losing PMAX campaign, which is running all of our products which have failed to prove themselves within this campaign alone. And then these two campaigns right here are doing majority of the selling, getting us the profitable results while we continue to test the bad products and just get rid of those which are not showing any results at all, eventually forever. So that's essentially how we kind of went about with this e-commerce brand. But it's all about really starting with a very strong foundation in terms of the campaign strategy. So if your e-commerce brand is in the current situation where it's spending less than $100 a day, go with the strategies I mentioned earlier in this video. And then as you start to scale up, as you get to this level of $500 a day or more ad spend, then you can kind of distribute into the 3-1 launch strategy and kind of mix and match different strategies together. But these are the different strategies I believe based on the ad spend, based on the current situation of your e-commerce brand that you should be implementing to continue scaling your brand. But if you're currently doing $40,000 or more per month in revenue, you need just a little bit of extra help scaling your brand to the next level, go onto my website at yourmarketing.com and book a free call with me to see how we can possibly work together and make that happen. But watch this video right here on the 7 different Google Ads strategies you can potentially start to use right now in 2023 to scale your brand even further with Google Ads.